Hi, I'm Caden here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our prediction for the 2024-2025 Conference Championship game round for the playoffs for this season. It is like literally Super Bowl's right around the corner at this point. We are under a month away, under 3 weeks away even, I think technically.
Yep,
so I mean
it's a week in between.
Of course you got your Pro Bowl week. Yep. So I guess not quite under 3, but coming up on 3 very rapidly. But it's getting real, and especially for these 4 teams that are left, it's getting very real. But before we move on to our games and those specific predictions, just a few things of updates. We actually are going to start with some news, which we haven't done in a while, but some news outside of players and more on the staffing side of things has finally been happening. This actually happened a couple weeks ago. There was a new coach that was hired just this week, but there was a coach that was hired, I want to say about 2 weeks ago that we never talked about. The Patriots hired Mike Vrabel as their new head coach. He, of course, most recently was with the Tennessee Titans and found some success there with his defensive play style. So to go with Vrabel and that defensive mindset, they also hired Josh McDaniels, formerly of the Denver Broncos, to be their offensive coordinator. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do with that new duo there in a very young team with some draft capital. Should see some improvement, hopefully, for the Patriots this time around. But now for the new coaching hire, the one that just happened, I think about yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Bears hired former offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions and Ben Johnson to be their new head coach. Love this hire for the Bears. I think he's perfect for Caleb Williams. He's going to take a lot of pressure off of them. He's a little more run game oriented. He takes pressures off of quarterbacks. He has a little more of a kind of trick play style, which kind of takes pressures off the quarterbacks too, because it always keeps the defense guessing. So it'll be really good for any young quarterback, but especially Caleb Williams, who had a little bit of a shaky start to his career last year. So those were our updates news-wise. Now an update in Cal and I's head-to-head pick'em game. Now, of course, last week, the divisional round games were worth 8 points apiece. So it was actually the most points that we could get in the whole season. And I went perfect. I went 4 for 4. So I got a huge bump, getting 32 points compared to Callan only going 2 for 4 and getting 16 points, putting us at totals of me with 246 and Callan with 198. Now, if you kind of remember what our point scale is, and if you do the math, next week, or I guess this week, I should say, with predictions, each game is worth 12 points for a total of 24 points. And the Super Bowl is worth 20 points for a total of 44 points up for grabs in the next 2 weeks, or next 2 prediction weeks, at least I should say. And if you do the math, I am more than 44 points ahead. I think I'm about 48 points ahead. So that is actually the end. I technically won, I guess. Woohoo! I was talking about
it's over.
I was talking about the comeback and me never really running away with it and always keeping it close and being scared. And then I proceeded to just absolutely run away with it. So we'll have to think of maybe some sort of punishment. We'll see. Like I said when Callan brought it up 2-3 weeks ago, it'd be a little silly to all of a sudden now that I won be like, oh, we should do a punishment. but we'll see if we can think of something fun. But we will still kind of track those and kind of see how we do, especially considering there could be a huge point swing in this next week, even though it might not matter. But just kind of, it's over, I guess. We're just kind of tracking it for fun. But talking about a huge point swing and where those points might be coming from, here are our predictions, starting with the Sunday at 2 o'clock Central game in the NFC Championship game. We have a divisional matchup with the 6th seed Washington Commanders heading to Philadelphia to take on the 2 seed Eagles, and we start by disagreeing. Callan sticks with the Commanders and I stick with the Eagles in this one. Now, something that's off topic from our predictions, but I actually just realized, and Callan and I both just kind of had an awe moment at the same time and realized, is not only are both of these teams in the same division as the Washington Commanders, but both are, in the same division as the Dallas Cowboys, but both of these teams actually have the former coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys last season on their coaching staff. The Commanders' head coach is Dan Quinn, who was the Cowboys' defensive coordinator last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles' offensive coordinator is Kellen Moore, who was the Cowboys' offensive coordinator last year. So that's just absolutely hilarious. It's such a random little nitpick of a thing, or such a random thing to notice. But we were both just like, wow, that lines up exactly. Talk about the stars aligning. So huge coincidence, but pretty funny there. Shows that the Cowboys should have been a hell of a lot better than they did end up doing last season with a shocking wild card exit. But nonetheless, I digress. We are not talking about the Cowboys. We're talking about the Eagles and the Commanders here. And I am talking about why the Eagles will win. And it is because of Saquon Barkley. I mean, he is just such a beast. If you look at that game last week with the Eagles against the Rams really won that game, in my opinion. I mean, they were in control the entire time, except for 2, maybe 3 plays, and those 2 big plays being a 68-yard touchdown run by Saquon Barkley and a 72-yard touchdown run from Saquon Barkley. So when you talk about all that momentum going away for the Eagles and 14 points theoretically going away for the Eagles, it's a whole different ballgame, of course. No surprise there. But he single-handedly was able to put the team on his back. It was exactly why last week I said they would win, is that Saquon Barkley would take over and that the Rams aren't able to stop him. And he proved me right. I want to say he had the 2 touchdowns and just over 200 yards, if I'm not mistaken. 205. So not quite 250 like last time, but 205 is still pretty damn good, especially in a playoff game. So I think that the Eagles, and more specifically Saquon Barkley, are able to keep that momentum rolling. Don't get me wrong, the Commanders looked really good against the Detroit Lions. Like, really good. Jaden Daniels looks so comfortable, especially for how young he is. But I just think that the Eagles are too much right now. They are the better team right now. You ask me in 2 years, maybe even next year, I'm probably singing a different tune. The Commanders are all a year older. They have more draft capital than the Eagles do. But right now in this game, I think the Eagles are just still better. They have the home field advantage. It's probably going to snow again, which, of course, that run game, that offensive line always gets the benefit when it comes to snow games. So there's just too much stacked against the Commanders right now for me to comfortably pick them. I see it being a really close game, much closer than a 6 versus 2 matchup should be. But nonetheless, I do still see the Eagles pulling off a win.
Yeah, it definitely is in the Eagles' favor. But I like the Commanders in this one because right now they're coming in as the hot team and the team on a roll. Now, obviously, every team in the playoffs right now are on a roll for winning a few in a row. But the Commanders have actually come in on, I believe, a 6-game winning streak, including the playoffs. And that includes a victory over the Philadelphia Eagles in week 15, I want to say, 36-33. So
over Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee, though. You got to put that caveat.
Oh, was that
there.
The Kenny Pickett
That was
game?
the Kenny Pickett
game,
yeah.
So, there's a, okay. I kind of forgot about that.
I think Jalen played like maybe the first
was that
quarter.
the game he got hurt in?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why I kind of forgot about that. But nonetheless.
Which Kenny Pickett looked good in that
game. It was a victory over the Eagles still. So that's good for their morale to at least kind of hang their hat on. But also, the reason I like the Commanders in this one is because of Jaden Daniels, who's proving that he can single-handedly win games just like Saquon Barkley can. I also believe that they can do this because this is a divisional game, an interdivisional game, where division opponents, it's always a close game, more than likely always a close game. And they always, each team knows each other so well. They know how to stop Saquon Barkley because they've played against him not only in Philadelphia, but in New York. So they kind of, I believe, should have the book on him. Now, it doesn't mean that Saquon can't go off again, but I think that's what it's going to require for the Eagles to win. And I don't think that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row because of that Commanders defense led by none other than Bobby Wagner, who I forgot is on that Washington Commanders team. Also led with Jeremy Chin in the secondary. That's a very good defensive line led by Jonathan Allen. So I think that all around the Commanders might have the better defense as a whole team defense. So I just think theirs is better. So I think that they're going to be able to hold Saquon in check and force Jalen Hurts to be the one to beat him. And we know that has been shaky and questionable ever since his concussion. He's never really fully shown that he's capable to lead a game since then, because each game has been almost won by Saquon Barkley or the Philadelphia defense. So also, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the Washington Commanders are going to get a few turnovers on the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that Jalen Hurts is going to turn the ball over. And then once that happens, look for that strong running game of Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler out of the backfield, and to go along with Jaden Daniels, who's proving, like I said, that he can be the one to win a football game when it really matters. And that's also because of his connections with Zach Ertz, who's proving to be
huge.
A huge, impactful player and a veteran presence on this team, as he was part of that Eagles Super Bowl team from a few years back. So I really like the Commanders in this one. They're the hot team coming in, and you always got to roll with the hot team going in. And I think they're able to upset the Eagles, and we're going to look towards the Commanders being in the Super Bowl this year.
A 6 seed in the Super Bowl would be pretty damn crazy. Mm-hmm. One thing I just noticed about this game that's pretty damn crazy as well is there is 5 of the top, possibly 10, at least not, or if not, at least top 15 inside defensive linemen in this game. The Commanders have Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and Johnny Newton. And then the Eagles have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter.
Oh, yeah.
And do they still have Javon Hargrave, too?
No, I think he went to San Francisco,
yeah, I think
but they have Josh Sweat.
Yeah, I mean, just an insane defensive line game, to say the least. So that might be one of the big X factors right there, especially with how strong each of these run games are. So now moving on to the second of 2 championship games, we have the AFC Championship this time around, which will be played at Sunday at 5:30 Central Time between the 2 seed Buffalo Bills and the 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. And we disagree again. We each have completely different Super Bowls. Callan takes the Bills and I stick with the Chiefs. And more than anything, I just got to take the Chiefs because they are so good in the playoffs. They just seem quite literally unbeatable in the playoffs. It's insane, and I don't want it to happen. This Super Bowl matchup, Chiefs versus Eagles, is the dead opposite of what I want to happen. I would so much rather see the Commanders versus the Bills or any other one, but I just think it's what's going to happen. I got to stick with the true predictions, get the points, because the marquee teams are marquee teams for a reason, whether that's because they're really actually that good, because of the NFL and the refs benefit them a little bit, maybe a little bit of both. That's up to your discretion, however you want to look at that. But the marquee teams make it to the marquee matchups, and I think that's what we get here with the Chiefs versus the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes has just been legendary in the playoffs. I mean, what he's able to do outside of the regular season but especially outside of the regular season, is just one of the more impressive things quite possibly ever in the NFL. The streak that he's had going, this team is ironically probably the healthiest it's been all year. One of kind of the big things when it comes to playoffs is sometimes the teams who make it the furthest in the playoffs isn't the best team, it's the healthiest team. And the Chiefs literally broke that. They flipped that saying on its head because they were so unhealthy throughout the whole season and still were able to get the 1 seed. And then after the bye week, all of a sudden you look at them in the divisional round last week against the Texans, a game that stayed relatively close, but I mean, they were pretty well ahead the whole time, or at least in control the whole time, I should say. But you look at that game against the Texans and you're looking around and you're like, there's Hollywood Brown. I forgot they had him. Oh, there's him. I forgot they had him. All these guys who were hurt were playing all of a sudden because they were finally healthy. So they've literally only gotten stronger throughout the year. And that's going to all come together in this game where they're pretty much at full strength. And let me tell you, they're going against a full-strength Bills team too. There's no doubt about it. This is probably going to be the game of the year. Playoffs, regular season, however you want to look at it. Game of the decade, game of the NFL history, it has a chance to be. I mean, this one, the stars are the limit for this game, to say the least. But the Chiefs have just done it before. They've been in this situation so many times. They have the home field advantage because they always have the home field advantage in the playoffs. It never fails that they're the 1 seed. There's just so much going for them right now. The one thing not going for them is the fact that they have to face Josh Allen, who is a man possessed in the playoffs right now, trying to get himself a ring and trying to get the Bills that Super Bowl appearance. but the Chiefs are sadly just too damn good. I take them into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Chiefs are good, and it's Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be tough to beat. But there's one thing about the Bills this year, and that's that he is Superman.
Literally,
he
dude.
just seems bound and determined to get the Bills to the Super Bowl. And not only for the Bills, I think for himself. I think he's doing it for himself. I mean, I think he's being selfish. I think he's doing it
He's tired
for
of
his
it.
own glory. He's not doing it just for the city or his teammates or the town of Buffalo and the Bills, but he's doing it all for himself to get himself a ring, because who wouldn't want a Super Bowl ring? But yeah, I predict a 1992 rematch of Super Bowl 26 when it was the Washington then Redskins versus the Buffalo Bills. But in this matchup, I think that the Bills and the Commanders are going to be a lot better. It's going to be a lot more high scoring than it was. And I think that the Bills win this game against the Chiefs because of Josh Allen. And he's going to play some hero ball. I think he's going to put that cape on, and he's going to score a few touchdowns. He's going to throw a few more, and he's going to beat the Chiefs in the secondary and that tough Chiefs defense, because it's one of the last hurdles to the Super Bowl. He's one of the last ones who has a chance to stop the Mahomes three-peat. And I think that he's going to do it. And just because of that sheer want to and will, I think he's going to will that team to a victory. And because the defense is a little bit outmatched, the Chiefs' running game, though, is weak. It is powerful with Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco getting healthier with every game. Look for it to possibly be the game difference maker. But I think the Bills' run defense is able to shore itself up and able to bring the Chiefs' run game to a halt, with Ed Oliver leading the way on the Bills' defensive front, who's really having at least a good season, a good postseason, and a really good last game. He made quite the presence known against the Detroit Lions. And I think that the Bills get a lot of pressure on Mahomes, and hopefully don't get too many roughing the quarterback penalties, because there's been some reporting that Patrick Mahomes has been flopping. So, the NFL is actually looking into what the NBA does about their flopping, and so we're looking to see if Mahomes is getting away with a few extra penalties. So maybe the Chiefs really are playing the refs, the ref side, by kind of bending the rules a little bit with a little bit of that flopping. So look for them to not get as many roughing the passer calls, because I don't think the NFL wants to end up looking like the NBA. So they want to bring back their tough persona. And what a way to do it, with Josh Allen playing Superman and the Bills to bully their way past Mahomes and into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I actually forgot to even talk about that. But the calls last week for Mahomes, the two big ones, of course, are the two big ones. But there was a lot that were really questionable. And it's funny you mentioned the flopping. I didn't know that. Because there was that one where he very obviously flopped.
Oh,
they did the slow on the side
call that
on
one.
the sideline. They did the slow motion, and you see the shove, his movement, and then the hands go. Yeah, it's so funny. It's just so brutally obvious. But yeah, that's actually a very interesting point, especially for them to do that, because the first thing they did after the game, after all the controversy, was come out and back the refs and say that they had agreed with every call they made.
Yeah.
So the fact that they came out and did that right after, and then now a whole week later are like, oh, he might be flopping. Like now we're looking into this. It's like, just make up your mind. Like, if you're gonna back them, back them. That's dumb, but stick with it. Don't back them and then be like, oh, maybe we'll look into this. But the NFL is going to do whatever the NFL wants to do.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to stop them.
No.
But yes, Callan and I both predict some Super Bowl rematches. Callan was Super Bowl 26 and me was Super Bowl like 2 years ago. I don't remember which number it was, but it was pretty damn recent. Yeah, I mean,
it was
2023. Yeah, it was in 2023, the 2022 season. So yeah, I mean, if you don't remember that one, then I don't know what you're doing. Maybe I doubt most people remember the Super Bowl 26, but if you don't remember the Super Bowl 2 years ago, then you're really struggling. Sorry. But no, thank you all so much for watching these prediction episodes. No prediction episode next week. We'll think of something. We'll do something fun next week. We'll have an episode just to fill in. But then the week after that, we will of course have our Super Bowl predictions. Much more of a whole show around those predictions. If you remember from last year, we'll break down each kind of section of the team, and then of course pick our overall winner. So very fun episode there. But like I said, stay tuned in until next week for whatever filler we do, and then the week after that for that prediction episode. But until then, don't forget
To eat the W.